How are you, man?
Good, man. How are you?
Good.
Right on.
What's
Well,
up?
this
Let me
is
try to get at a good angle here. Did we try to do this before and I
uh,
screwed it up, or I couldn't connect?
it's been they're all green now. Yeah, it's been we did a little back and forth, little email dance to get
Yeah.
this
Well, thanks for circling back on that. I
of
don't know.
course, yeah. No, initially when they asked, I guess probably in like the summertime, it was one of those like I was like, I don't really feel like doing it, but it like in my summer because I'm a teacher at BCIT
Oh,
beyond
okay.
beyond this podcast and stuff, right? So it's kind of like I was in summer mode and I was like, fuck it, yeah, I'll do it, whatever. And then it never happened, and I was like, all right, well, we still got to make this happen. So yeah, so thank you, man, for taking some time and
Hell
hanging
yeah.
out.
Thank you.
You know, as a radio guy, I don't know if you know my back history from just podcasting and stuff, but I did 20 years of radio in Canada. I did
Oh, shit.
12
Okay.
years afternoon show at CFOX, the rock station here in Vancouver. So when I got let go, that's when I got into podcasting. I'm into like year 9 now. But so like I'm super intrigued with your career path. I guess selfishly because of my career path, like
Yeah, totally.
and
Yeah. Thank
and
you.
kind of knowing like, man, the correlations between radio and a comedian and like traveling down that path, like there's so many things that intertwine and mix with each other. Like as an on-air performer, I'm very aware of my surroundings. I'm very aware of things that happen in my world that everybody can relate to. Do you know what I mean?
Totally.
And you kind of need that in comedy as well. And I'm
Yeah.
wondering, like, how do you store that here? Are you one of those guys that's like something funny, you pump it into your phone, or like what do you
I
do
have,
for that?
if I printed my note page or notepad in my phone that has all of my premises of observations and things that pop in my head even at 2 o'clock in the morning. I mean, if I printed it, it would be 6 miles long.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm always putting stuff in my phone. Always. I'm like, oh my God, that's a bit, that's a bit, that's a bit. And then sometimes then I'll scroll for an hour trying to find something I want to work on because it's just almost too much stuff in there.
interesting.
And then sometimes I'm like, what the hell was I smoking when I put this in my phone? I don't even know what
Yeah,
I was
right. Yeah, let me find that strain because that's a good strain. And so, like, do you find that hard to turn that stuff off?
Oh yeah, I never turn it off.
Yeah,
It's a sickness. It's turned into sickness, you know.
yeah. I mean, yeah, dude. Like your career path is uh, like so you read why you get into doing comedy, and it's truly that, right? It's about telling the stories and being that person at a dinner table that can keep people entertained and engaged and that sort of thing. And like it was literally that easy
Well,
to make the transition, or like
well, I wanted to do comedy since I was a kid, right? And I ended up in doing radio because it was safer. Stand-up comedy
sure,
always seemed terrifying to me,
same, yeah,
and I couldn't wrap my head around being that vulnerable and going up there. But the goal was to always entertain, and I loved music. Um, so I gravitated towards radio, and radio was a completely different thing. It was a big deal when I was a kid, man. Those DJs were the morning shows that I grew up listening to were very entertaining and very creative. And I don't feel like there's a lot of creative people left in radio at times.
I think what happens in radio, if I can quickly cut you off, is that they leave it to just the morning show.
Right.
The only show that can have any sort of personality or push buttons or hit those hot topics and all that stuff, the stuff that I was saying, like where do you put it? You get those ideas, you got to be able to execute that stuff. And I think that that's what's happening with radio, is that they're losing those key positions and day parts that could and should uh, you know, exercise those muscles.
Agreed. And PPM was pretty much the death of creativity on radio. Everything's got to be PPM friendly.
Right.
Talking about the ratings, the portable people meter. Um,
Wasn't that a big song in the 60s? It was a
people,
one-eyed
people
purple.
meter. Purple people meter.
That's great. Yeah, but you're right though, because then they start to really get nitpicky and like, oh, did that work? Did that break work? Did that song work? Should we play that feature? Like,
Yeah,
let's make fun radio. Like that's what
yeah.
radio is, right? Should be fun.
And you started hearing PPM friendly, PPM friendly, PPM friendly, and it's like, well, what happened to creative friendly or listener friendly, or you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
it's the old paralysis by analysis, basically, is where you're at with that, I think.
Yeah, I think that with radio, it's funny that they pay the people to do the jobs they are good at or pros at.
Mm-hmm.
We'll put you in on air because you're good at talking, you know the music. We'll put you in promotions because you're good at that side of the industry or whatever, blah blah blah. But then they'll go and they'll get other people to nitpick their station, or like, what should we be playing? Well, why don't you talk to the jocks that are on your station, the people that you trust to be the front line of your, and then
we're
it's
gonna
like,
hire you because you're funny and entertaining and you're good at talking, but we're not gonna let you do any of those things.
But let's get a consultant for that sort of shit. Like that's the stuff that blew me away, because then I would always be like, well, why don't you get our 2 cents out of it? And it would be like, well, you're too close to the product. You're that Uber nerd, but not everybody is. And it's like,
right.
But shouldn't you be relying on those Uber nerds? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Totally.
It's trippy. So what's the music then in your house as a kid growing up and stuff?
My parents were both big country music fans. My dad was even in a country band. Oh God, they were terrible. I don't even remember what they were called. And I would get drugged down there to listen to that nonsense a lot of times on the weekends. But I grew up an '80s rocker, man. I mean, I've still, maybe every generation thinks this, but I still feel like '80s music was the best music in all genres. The '80s music was just incredible. That was an incredible time for music. So, but that was my jam. I was big hair bands.
Yeah, same. And like, to your point, like '80s, and it was both the videos, and then suddenly there's Friday night videos, and there's Good Rockin' Tonight, and of course MTV, and then I don't know, I think maybe Much got into like maybe the late '80s, Much Music here in Canada, like maybe the late '80s, early '90s kind of thing. But yeah, it's like in that '80s when all these videos were brand new and some were really incredible, like Aha, or Duran had some cool shit as well.
Yeah, well, MTV was cool then. That's when they showed videos, and I don't even know if they've showed a video in the last 10 years, or is there even still an MTV? I don't even know.
I know, right? It's like, oh man, it's disappointing that side of the industry. I mean, I guess even kind of just music in general is kind of.
There is an MTV.
It's
still,
fallen
right?
to that.
I honestly don't know.
Yeah, I think that there's still MTV.
How crazy that we're.
That's hilarious that both of us were like.
Because I really don't know.
Well, can guarantee they're not playing videos, which is a shame.
It became reality TV.
Yeah, totally. That's what it's going to be. That, or I know that they were doing a lot of Beavis and Butthead for a while there too, like that sort of shit.
Yeah.
But if you're going to have a station like, especially something like that niched, maybe follow through with it, right?
Yeah, maybe not call it music television.
Maybe rename it. I guess time for a rebrand. There was never that SWAT meeting.
Right?
Nobody said something at a SWAT meeting. Like,
yeah.
And what was your first concert, man?
My first concert was Dio, Ronnie James Dio, in 1984. Holy Diver, I think, might have been the tour. I don't know for sure, but I went with my older brother and his friends, and I was probably too young to be at that concert, but it blew my mind. Sorry, let me turn that down. That was wild. And then I was hooked on concerts after that, man. I saw everybody.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, huge part of my life too, right? Like that's why I got into radio, was because of music, and like it wasn't because I guess kind of I'm a performer, but really it was about the music, and I was like, man, how cool would that be to be backstage drinking Eddie Van Halen beer,
Yeah, I remember when I decided to try to or to pursue radio as a career. Same thing. I would listen to this morning show, The Morning Mayor, Dave Pratt, The Morning Mayor in Phoenix,
Okay.
um, on 98 Rock, and just remember thinking, I don't know that there could possibly be a cooler job than playing music, entertaining people, and going to concerts and for free. And yeah, I was just like blown away, like that was a reality for some people. And so when I
Totally.
yeah, and when I got into radio, I remember the goal was, when I was interning or whatever, hanging banners and shit, I thought if I could just get a full-time I didn't give a shit if I was still poor. I was like, if I could just pay my truck payment and my rent and eat, I'm good. I don't they don't need to pay me shit. I just want
Totally,
to
man.
like, if I can pay my bills doing what I love, I'll feel like the most successful human being in the world. And so I always approached everything from that point on with that mindset. It was never about the money when I went into records or whatever the hell I did. And I think that's why I got so frustrated with radio, because I started growing in the company and becoming, an executive and a VP and all that bullshit.
Mm.
All the fancy titles with the nice office and the parking space. And it just, the further up I went, the more I made, the further removed from what I really loved I became. And it just made me miserable.
Yeah. Yeah. Radio's got a good way of doing that, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, it just became so corporate, in
Well, you start to
'96.
pick it apart, right? Yeah. It's
Well, yeah, in
it's corporate
'96
regardless.
when they deregulated, it was the Telecommunications Act of '96. I think is when Clinton said one person could own more than, it used to be a lot of mom and pops before that, and
Right.
then corporations came in and gobbled all the stations up, and then you had lawyers, and you had to run it through 7 lawyers before you could do a promotion, and they just ruined it. But yeah, it just became more and more corporate and less, fun and creative, and it just sucked the soul out of me. And I'm glad it did, though, because it forced me to finally do what I love, really love the most, and wanted to do the most.
Right. Right. And like, so for the comedy side of things, like who's killing it right now, do you think?
I'm a big fan of Bill Burr.
Yeah, he's one of my favorites.
I mean, you can't have this conversation without talking about Dave Chappelle,
Of
Chris,
course.
Chris uh, Rock. His special recently was unbelievable. You can't have this conversation without talking about Kevin Hart.
Right.
But yeah, those are I feel like I'm forgetting one or two that should be, but it just depends. Look, Nate Bargatze is amazing.
Funny kid,
I
yeah.
find him to be brilliant because
Yeah.
clean comedy. I know how hard that is because I'm not clean. Um,
Yeah,
Jim
it'd be hard to
Gaffigan.
be
Yeah,
clean,
those
right?
clean guys
Yeah.
there's a whole different skill set there. I think somebody that I think is joke for joke one of the funniest fucking people out there that's not on that uh, A-list level that should be, in my opinion, is Dusty Slays. I find him to be so damn funny.
Okay.
You familiar with him?
No, but I'm going to look after. I can't remember there's been a couple guys lately that aren't A-listers for, but they're certainly funny. A guy named Mark, he has a Mark Normand, I think is his last name.
Okay.
And he has a podcast that's pretty funny as well. But he's definitely worth checking out. And then Mark also does a drinking podcast with a guy. I can't blanking on his name, but he's another funny comedian. And that's how I actually found both of them, was through this podcast. So I was like, man, these guys are pretty funny, right? And then individually
Yeah.
check them out, and they're like, holy shit, like their comedy is really, really good,
Yeah.
but they're not well-known guys. But
Yeah, you got to check out Dusty Slay. He's a beast. And then the influences were Sam Kinison was the guy, man. He's the reason. He's the reason. He's the reason I'm doing comedy right now.
Yeah. And some of the stuff, when you think back to some of the stuff, like especially Delirious, Eddie Murphy, like could that show today be put on? No. I mean, you could, but you take
you take zero chance.
Right?
He would be canceled tomorrow.
Right.
And it surprises me, because I loved Eddie Murphy. He's another reason, actually. I'd consider him a really big influence. That Delirious special,
sure.
I could do the whole thing frontwards and backwards back then.
Yeah.
And what amazes me about that is, nowadays people are in love with going back in time and finding what you tweeted or said and canceling you, right?
Right.
Which I think is insane because it was a different time, different, doesn't. But anyway, my point is Eddie Murphy says, refers to homosexuals as the F word in there like 15 times.
Yeah.
Never do that now.
No.
I'm not advocating for him to be canceled for it, by the way.
No, me neither. We're just saying like different time, different,
But you wouldn't, if that did come out today, his career would be over tomorrow for a lot of the things he said in there. But I do think we need to stop looking for reasons to cancel people because Eddie Murphy is unbelievable.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. And so, did you get into the Canadian stuff like SCTV, Bob and Doug? Did that soak into your world at all, or?
No, I don't mess with Canadian stuff because I'm not allowed in the country. So until I'm allowed in the country, I'm not gonna.
Right.
No, yeah. No, I'm not kidding about not being allowed in the country, but.
Right.
No, but so who's this?
Well, that's older stuff though. Like this is going back to like the Saturday Night Live, but back in the late 70s, early 80s kind of thing, right?
Oh, okay. No, I'm more familiar with obviously, what Jim Carrey and the big. There's several Canadian.
Oh, there's tons of big Canadian actors.
Yeah, very big.
Yeah. Like Martin Short, Eugene Levy.
Right. Yeah, I feel like I'm forgetting one obvious one besides Jim Carrey, but
Dan Aykroyd.
There you go. Yeah,
another one. Yeah, there's so many.
I should dig into the Canadian stuff.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and so how did your we're talking about specials and stuff. Like, how did your Nash Vegas thing turn out? And like when you do a special like that, it's going to be recorded. Is it like harder to pull that show off?
Yeah, especially when it's the first time you walk on stage and see cameras everywhere. But I filmed it in Nashville and in Las Vegas, and the special jumps back and forth. And so let's be honest, that takes a lot of pressure off when if you fuck it up, you could get it right in Vegas tomorrow night.
Yeah, I got a mulligan on each joke.
Yeah, and that's not why I did it, because look, I'm sure you're aware, most specials are 2 takes folded into one, right?
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So maybe I shouldn't be giving insider secrets out.
Yeah, like that. Pulling the screen open.
I'm pretty sure most people know that, but
yeah.
It's not why I did it. I didn't do it.
No, of course not.
Make it easy, because I didn't think I could do. I'm going to release the entire Vegas and the entire Nashville set as some bonus footage stuff, anyways.
Right.
So it's not like when it comes time to film a special, it's not like you can't do all 50 minutes. You wouldn't be filming a special if you didn't have the confidence that you could go up there and do that.
Right.
But I did it because people started calling me Nash Vegas, especially in Las Vegas, because I started doing open mics in Nashville, but I really learned how to do comedy in Las Vegas, and I couldn't pick a city that I wanted to film my special in. They both just mean too much. And then I asked, well, can't we just film it in both places and have it pop back and forth? And everybody loved the idea, so we went with it.
Nash Vegas is such a rad nickname.
Yeah, thanks, man. So people now call me Mr. Nash Vegas.
That's great.
The special is named Nash Vegas, and yeah, so there you go.
Well, that's funny. And which shows have you been binge watching lately?
You know, I don't really watch TV. I don't watch anything. I
Really?
watch as much comedy. I watch a lot of comedy specials, just because I'm a fan of comedy.
Oh, so you're ripping into YouTube a lot, or what?
Well, mostly, Netflix, Amazon.
Oh, true.
But,
Yeah.
But I don't really watch and YouTube, but I don't watch anything really other than sports and comedy.
Oh, yeah. What are you into for sports?
I love all sports. I'm mainly football. I'm mostly well. I got to be honest. I don't like football as much as I used to. It's not the gladiator shit that it used to be. But
well, hockey's like that too now.
Yeah, hockey. Yeah,
sure.
I'm a Steelers fan. I got to be honest. There are times, I used to laugh at my friends that would tell me football was fake, like wrestling, and I used to tell them they're nuts. But I'm starting to wonder lately. I got to be honest with you.
Really, it's gotten to that point.
It's not fake. The referees have way too much control over who wins.
They have a lot of power. Yeah, they definitely have a lot of power.
I mean, there are so many questionable calls. It's just ridiculous,
Yeah. Even in hockey, it's like, I don't know, man. There was a talk of maybe even taking hitting out.
That's ridiculous.
Like no hitting in hockey? Really? That's
right.
hockey.
I bet that would really bother you as a Canadian.
Oh, dude, I would stop watching it.
I mean,
if I want to do that, I'll watch my kids' games.
The Canadians got it right with that sport.
Oh yeah, it's a rough sport, man. You want to get
well, it's look. You go to a live hockey game. There's no better sport live, period, in my opinion. And I challenge anyone to convince me otherwise. Who there was a comedian. I'm sure you heard the joke that they went to a boxing match and a hockey game broke out.
Oh yeah, totally right.
Like you better be tough as nails to play hockey. Period.
Oh yeah, and we have two national sports, right? And the other one is lacrosse, which is even worse. It's just not as fast because you can only go as fast as you can run, but it's like you can slash someone with your stick if you're playing lacrosse, right? You got hands on your stick, you're good to go.
Yeah, what is it about Canadians and flinging shit around and slashing?
Rough, people? Man. Right?
Rough.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh man. Hey, I know I told you I'd be about 20. I think we're just a little past 20 now, so I don't want to steal too much of your time, but I do have a few more.
Oh, you're good. We're good.
Okay, good. You strike me as a guy that would have read a lot of comic books as a kid. Yes?
Yes, absolutely did. Yes.
Nice. Yeah, same. I've got like boxes and boxes still to this day.
I wish I would have. I wish I would have kept them, and I didn't.
Oh, is that right? Yeah, I stupidly got rid of a lot of hockey cards. Kind of just whatever. I wasn't thinking collecting that way. But the comic books, man, I've got a lot of comic books. Yeah, it's crazy. But so
I bet they're worth a lot.
I bet you they're worth a lot too. Yeah. What were you into?
You're gonna laugh. This is probably the silliest damn comic you can think of, and I used to be obsessed with this comic when I was a kid, and maybe it's because I was poor. But Richie Rich.
Okay.
I loved Richie Rich.
And this kid buys everything. Anything he wants, he gets it.
It blew my mind because, I was dirt ass poor growing up in the middle of Arizona in a trailer. And it fascinated the shit out of me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I read a lot of that as a kid. I read a lot of the Archie as well.
Loved Archie.
I loved
Archie
and Betty.
I was never into the superhero shit though.
Oh, you didn't get into the superhero stuff. Okay.
I liked and I'm the same way with movies. I always have been. I like stuff that's like possible.
Yeah.
Like I never got into the action movies or it's like got to be a little realistic. Like, the Archie and the Richie, it was just about life. It was just silly stuff,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, yeah. So, but I never got into the Marvel shit or any of that.
Well, that makes sense though, right? Because we're talking off the top there, and it's like you need to be able to relate to people, and if it's so far over the top, like if you need to suspend your disbelief so much, like
Yeah, 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 yeah.
although in the same breath, I will say I fucking love those superhero movies. Like eye candy, put your attention at leave it at the door and just come in and just mind numbing, just good stuff in that way. I do like it for that.
Yeah, a lot of my friends do as well. I loved the Superman movie when I was a kid. The first one with that Christopher Reeves. Was that his name?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Like
The original
original
Superman,
one.
or maybe that wasn't even the original, but
I think that was the original. I think so.
yeah.
Yeah.
I liked that one. Other than that, they got carried away. I probably liked the original Batman, and just
Yeah.
like all the other great movies. Once you're past part two, enough already.
Yeah, it's tough to beat the original for sure.
Yeah. How many goddamn Batmans do we need? I mean, stop it already.
They really have done the Batman series, right? So many actors, so many different shows, and
Yeah, good grief.
do you get recognized very often?
No,
You don't, eh?
no, I'm not. I'm not on that level yet, and I'm
I
all
mean,
right with.
you're on that path though.
I want to say hopefully, but also I don't know if I want to say hopefully. I definitely am not interested in fame at all.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to right back to where I said in the radio. I just want to pay my bills doing what I love. You know what I mean? Only I had it wrong in radio because I wanted to just make enough to pay my car payment and make the rent and eat. Now I'd like to have a little bit more than that,
Sure, yeah.
doing what I love. So
I'll have that, but then a little bit more.
maybe a nicer car, a nicer house, and a lot of golf.
Sure.
Be able to be generous with all my friends, and like I don't need to have millions and millions, but I definitely need a couple million.
Right.
Anyway, yeah, I don't. I could definitely go without the fame. No, I don't think anything.
Yeah, same. Like I'll take the money that comes with that fame, but the fame can like no thanks.
All day, and unfortunately, a lot of times, and especially in what I'm doing now, one you pretty much have to have one with the other.
Yeah.
The money's not going to come without the fame.
Yeah.
And what came first, the fame or the fortune? I don't know.
I know we're gonna be chasing it for a while.
We got a chicken and an egg situation here. We don't know.
Byron, hit us with a. It's not a question, but it's more of a story. I want to know a time in your life where you could have died, like a near death story.
Uh, well, I was riding my bike home from the bar drunk the other night and crashed it, and that hurt like a son of a bitch. But
Like your pedal bike or your actual bike?
a pedal bike, yeah. We don't need to get into that story. I
Oh my god!
definitely
I've
felt
gone
like
over the bar, the handlebars of a 10-speed. I was riding to a buddy's place, and I was carrying a 6-pack of beer. And as I'm riding, I was like, I'm riding with no hands, and I was like, oh, let's put the beer down on the handlebars. And of course, as soon as I did that,
yeah.
pulled the hand, folded this way, and I'm like straight over. I'm wearing a helmet, thankfully, like totally munched a big chunk out of the helmet. Like,
Yeah, well, my dumbass wasn't even wearing a helmet, and I need to. I think so. This isn't really the answer to your question, but yeah, the other night, my stupid ass, I can go to my favorite little restaurant bar on a bike through bike trails. I don't have to get on traffic or put anybody's life in danger or mine really to any real extent, right? So,
yeah.
but it got dark because it's been getting dark earlier, and my dumbass, I'm riding back, and I think, well, let me take the scenic route along the beach. it's pitch fucking dark. What am I talking about? The scenic route. You couldn't see shit out there.
Right. Hopefully there's no logs in the way.
Yeah, I'm like, let's take the peaceful scenic route. It's pitch dark, and the little path is in between, it's in a park, like grass. I'm cutting through, and my tire just slips off in between the concrete and the grass and gets stuck in that groove. And down I went, man, and busted my ass. Oh my God. And it's just like I hadn't hit the ground real hard like that in a long time. Where you just lay there and scan your body to figure out how much shit you broke.
Yeah.
And man, that hurt. Thank God it was dark and no one could see it, because there were people milling around, but that would have been pretty embarrassing. But anyway, almost died. I don't know that I have. I feel like I've almost died every time I get off an airplane.
Yeah, right. I haven't been in a plane for a while.
I always feel like that's a real brush with death. But, I had pneumonia once. I don't know. I was in the hospital with pneumonia. I don't think I've ever come close to dying, thankfully.
Oof, that's pretty good, man. Most people
I'll have to get back at you, though. But, I got through my crazy days, so I'm surprised I'm saying that. In my 20s.
Yeah, man. I was talking to a buddy. Funny you say that. We put the crazy days at about 19 or 20. Like, if you can live past 19, 20, 21 years old, like, you're probably going to live a full life.
That's true. I would say, to answer your question, every day in my 20s, I probably almost died.
Right, dude. Right, yeah. I
was completely out of my fucking mind.
I know, right? I think we all were at that point.
100%, yeah. I'm glad to say that now, in exciting days, that I fell over on my bicycle. How sad is that?
I know, right? It's like, back then it was like, how much fun do I want to have today? Like, what am I putting into my body that I shouldn't be? Or like, what's the crazy shit on a bike that I'm going to do that I shouldn't do? Or that sort of shit. All right.
I did wreck a dirt bike pretty bad once. So
did you really?
Yeah, I flipped, cracked some ribs, broke my collarbone. Oh. I'd have been dead if I didn't have a helmet on that.
There you go. That's definitely a near death story, man.
Yeah. So anyway,
like breaking collarbones, man. You're doing like I broke my collarbone. Quick Cole's notes of the story. I was going down a hill in Terrace, and I let my buddies go about maybe 200 meters ahead of me, and I was like, I'm going to catch you guys. Had no brakes on the bike. I get to the bottom, and I'm almost hitting my buddy, so I'm like, get out of the way, and they can't hear me, so I'm like, I just go off to the side. I'm like, oh, I'll just go on the sidewalk. Well, the inertia of the speed going through the sidewalk, now I'm going through people's yards, and I eventually go through this, a theater with a beveled walkway, and the tire Pac-Man there again, fly over the handlebars, slam into a telephone pole to stop me. If I was like a couple, 2-3 inches over, man.
Yeah.
My head.
No good. Yeah. Well.
Yeah, dude. Crazy. That's crazy.
Here we are. We made it. We're survivors.
And yet, here we are, baby. Here we are. All right.
Yeah.
Byron, last question. Hardest question, I think. What, especially considering your career, man, like, pick one career highlight, or is that just impossible?
No. I would have to say doing the Grand Ole Opry in Nashville, Tennessee, and standing in the circle where Elvis Presley, Johnny Cash have stood. And, that place sells out every night, 5,000 people. It was an out of body experience for sure. And you have to be invited. It's invite only. You can't book it.
Wow.
And they'll throw a comedian in from time to time in between the acts. So that for sure. Well, can I give you two answers? Well, no, that's
whatever, man. Dude, that's. Yeah. I mean, if you can beat that, even if something that's on
the radio, the highlight of my radio career was when Howard Stern was talking about me, because he was my hero, and he talked about me for like 10 minutes one time. And
oh, did he really? That's pretty rad.
And I was having friends of mine from all over the country blowing me up because he's on in different time zones. So I had friends 3 hours before it aired in California, texting me like, "Holy shit, dude! Howard Stern's talking about you right now." And yeah, that was wild. So
That's crazy.
yeah,
And so for the Grand Ole Opry, like your knees are shaking as you're walking on stage. That sort of like, holy shit.
I was terrified. Yeah, I was so worried that an F-bomb might slip out, and I'd never be invited back, because it's family friendly, it's wholesome, it's the Grand Ole Opry, and I have a lot of respect for the Opry and for country music, and yeah,
you don't want to accidentally let something out.
yeah, that was scary. That walking out on that stage was scary, and then, a friend of mine, he's the club owner in Vegas, Matt. I was really nervous about doing the Opry, and I was like, dude, what if I bomb? Like, I'm not a clean comic, and I got to be clean, I'm not overly raunchy either, but he said, and it actually really set my mind at ease. He goes, dude, so what if you bomb? He goes, how many comics can say they bombed at the Grand Ole Opry? He goes, that'd be a hell of a story. I go, yeah, that's a good point. That will make a good story.
Totally right. It's like that's better than telling people just to imagine them that they're naked. Like,
right. It actually gave me. I was like, you know what? At least I'm coming out of this with a good story. It'll be painful while it's happening.
Right.
People will forever love that I went and bombed at the Grand Ole Opry. Like my buddy Willie Barcena got booed off the stage at the Apollo twice in the same night.
No. He's gonna remember that for the rest of his life, right? Like,
that's a great story.
Totally, man. That's crazy. That's crazy. Byron, man, thank you for taking the time. And
man, thank you for wanting to talk to me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, like I said, I found your story super intriguing, and being that I traveled down that path, and I love comedy. I think that for me, comedy would almost be like the pinnacle of like testing what I do as a broadcaster. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's cool that you made that transition, and a smooth transition at that, man. Like, your comedy is dialed, and to know, like, that you're a radio guy, and
thank you,
and a record rep label guy as well, and like, that's fucking right up my alley. So super stoked to have talked to you today.
Awesome, man. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Right on, buddy. Okay, so your website is byronkennedycomedy.com.
ByronKennedyComedy.com, and on all my socials, I'm Byron Kennedy Comedy.
There you go. Right. I mean, keep it all in one place because it's easy to remember, baby.
That's right. You got it.
All right, bud. Have a great day, and we'll see you online, man. Thanks again.
Right on, man. Thank you so much. Take care.